All right, greetings and welcome to episode 139. I'm going to start by playing some of the most recent stuff that I have missed. I've missed a lot, so there is a lot to miss. Every time you turn around, there's always something going on. Here is Secretary Kennedy and Rollins announcing the new SNAP waivers.
Hi, I'm Robert F. Kennedy Jr., your HHS Secretary, and I'm here with three political heroes. My colleague and friend, USDA Secretary Brooke Rollins, Governor Sarah Huckabee Sanders from Arkansas, and Governor Mike Braun from Indiana. And today we're gathered to sign SNAP waivers.
Today is a great day for American taxpayers.
We signed 3 additional SNAP waivers. The incredible Sarah Sanders, the governor of Arkansas, along with Utah, Governor Cox, and Governor Little of Idaho's. Previously, we've signed Indiana's and Nebraska's and Iowa's, and the momentum continues that no longer in this country is it okay to spend taxpayer dollars on drinks and food that doesn't and isn't nutritious, especially for America's school children.
SNAP is a supplemental nutrition program.
For 20 years, people on both sides of the aisle have been trying to reform SNAP to get sugar drinks and candies off of SNAP. Today, we have a president who's finally putting an end to it. He has empowered Secretary Rollins and myself to change a system that has been begging for change for years.
Because of the leadership of President Donald Trump and the team that he has built and empowered to change our country, big things are happening.
This should cascade across the country. I spent 6 years in the U.S. Senate on the Health Committee, and we've gotten more done in under 6 months with the Trump administration. And hallelujah, we've arrived at a day where this is now front page news.
Because we want to make sure that our kids are growing up in a country where they can thrive, where they can be healthy. And that's exactly what we're doing here today, and proud to be part of this moment and this movement. Thanks, everyone.
Produced by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services.
Very cool. I like that. Well, that really opens things up here for some of the bigger challenges is when is government good? When is government bad? When can government do some amazing things? And sometimes you don't need to have, the Congress and all that stuff. Sometimes you just need to have the right president in the right spot. President Trump, once again, showing that things can get done if you have the motive, if you have the means. And then you have RFK Jr., who is able to walk in there and get a lot of this stuff done, to take what President Trump has tasked him with and actually do it. And we need more of that. With everything going on in this crazy world right now, it is really refreshing, really nice to hear more about keeping America healthy again. Once again, you have 2 great men on 2 fronts, 2 amazing fronts. You have Kennedy fighting for the health, and then you have President Trump fighting for peace, for world peace. And even though sometimes it may not seem like world peace, I believe that is exactly what President Trump is doing. He's doing what is best for this nation, what is best for this country. So none of us want to see boots on the ground in Iran or in any other country ever. I'm more for packing up and let's get rid of some of those bases too. Let's bring a lot of those troops home. I'm all for that. But there's also the health issue that we have in this country, and it's nice to see that RFK Jr. is taking that head on because of President Trump. There is something that just streamed about an hour ago. The Secretary Kennedy, Admin Oz, discuss health insurance breakthrough. So I'm very curious to hear more about that. Before we get there, because I've missed so much being away and just working on finalizing some books and crossing some T's and dotting some I's, which has been a big challenge, a big fun challenge. And I am so glad that I'm able to move forward and get back into some of it. This is another big case. This was posted yesterday on June 22nd. Secretary Kennedy says NIH will spend the next 5 years researching the long-term health ramifications of the 2023 train derailment in East Palestine, Ohio. The people of East Palestine have a right to evidence-based answers about the impact on their health. NIH shells out $10 million to research health effects of 2023 train disaster in East Palestine, Ohio. Interesting name there. I always thought that was a little bit different. Wait a minute, where are we? Here's what he said on June 21st. I applaud the companies stepping up and taking responsibility for the health of our country. Together, we will make America healthy again. There it is. More and more, we are seeing this. We are seeing a lot of great things. Secretary Kennedy reposting how we plan to cut FDA drug approval time by months. Yes, we need drastic reform. I think many of us would agree. June 20th, the mission to make America healthy again, MAHA, includes MABA, Make America Biotech Accelerate. President Trump showed in his first term what happens when you unlock American science. Breakthroughs happen fast. Now we're going to do it again, says Kennedy. We know the power of U.S. biotech. It's time to let it flourish, not tie it up in red tape, misalignment, and a process that gives the edge to foreign interests and large incumbents. We're clearing the path to transform great science into real cures at lower costs and better health for the American people. Life science and biotech are at the heart of that. Very cool. All right, I'm going back. This will stay with me. See if there's anything else going on here. Where are we at? Is there anything else with Kennedy before we get to that long, very long? Oh, this is good to cover a little bit of that. Lots of great things happening. General Mills now committing to eliminate artificial dyes from its U.S. products within 2 years, thanks to POTUS's leadership and his pledge to make America healthy again. I urge other companies to step up and do the same. Wouldn't that be great? Thank you, VP Vance. Your relentless advocacy helped drive this first major coordinated federal study focused on the long-term health consequences of this disaster. The people of East Palestine have waited long enough. They deserve answers, accountability, and action. And I tried to find this full clip. I could not find the full thing, so I don't know where it is. I need to go maybe do a little bit better digging and find the actual full video, if there is one. This is a 4-minute clip, so this is good. This is definitely worth watching. And I have not seen, I've only seen bits and pieces of it, so I'm really looking forward to seeing the full clip in the full context here. And as long as everybody can see it, we can. Yes, good. On we go. Play this.
Hey guys, Vice President J.D. Vance here, and I want to take you back to something that happened early on when I was a United States Senator. There was a terrible train crash, and then there was a controlled burn of toxic chemicals that went into the atmosphere in East Palestine, Ohio, a little town in the northeastern corner of the state of Ohio. What happened then is that people got very worried, and I've been to East Palestine a number of times, and they're very worried about what are the long-term impacts of these chemicals in the water, in the air. What effect does it have on their kids and grandkids after 5 years, 10 years, 15 years of exposure? And the crazy thing is, number one, we didn't have a good answer to that question. Science had never actually tried to understand what the long-term exposure of these trace chemicals would do to people. And the second crazy thing is that as much as I tried as a United States Senator to work with the Biden administration, they refused to do anything to actually study the effects of these long-term exposures on the people of East Palestine. Well, now we have a new president and a great new Secretary of Health and Human Services, and he's got an incredible announcement. We're finally going to study the effects on these chemicals and finally get to the bottom of what effect this terrible train crash and the ensuing consequences had on the people of East Palestine.
I want to start by thanking my friend, Vice President J.D. Vance, for his continued and persistent interest in this issue, which many Americans have already forgotten. On February 3rd, 2023, a Norfolk Southern freight derailed in East Palestine, Ohio. The wreck involved 38 cars carrying hazardous chemicals, which ignited and then spread in these prolonged fires. East Palestine community members immediately began experiencing a range of initial health symptoms, including headaches and respiratory and skin and eye irritations, prompting concerns about the broader long-term impacts on maternal and child health. At the urging of Vice President, the National Institute of Health, under my direction, has launched a 5-year, $10 million research initiative to address health outcomes stemming from this calamity. This is the first large-scale coordinated multi-year federal study focused specifically on the long-term health impacts of the East Palestine disaster. The program will support robust community-engaged epidemiological research to understand the impacts of exposures on short and long-term injuries. It will also support public health tracking and surveillance of the community's health conditions to help us make informed health care choices and take appropriate preventative measures. I want to thank Vice President Vance for not forgetting about the people of East Palestine, for making this an important issue, and for allowing us to launch this important initiative.
This is a big announcement, guys. I'm very, very excited about it.
I am absolutely delighted to make this announcement today, and I want to thank Vice President Vance and Secretary Kennedy for staying on this issue. The purpose and goal of the NIH, the mission, is to advance the health and well-being of the American people, and this is a concrete way that we're going to do that. The NIH is working to ensure that the people of East Palestine and the surrounding communities are listened to, cared for, and they get the answers they deserve. Today, the NIH has established a program to coordinate health-related research with public health department needs and clinical practice to respond to the health effects of the derailment. The train was carrying hazardous materials, including vinyl chloride, butyl acrylate, ethylene glycol, and benzene residue, and community members have experienced a range of health issues following the incident. The NIH's multidisciplinary research program will focus on public health tracking and surveillance of the community's health conditions to support healthcare decisions and preventative measures. Importantly, the program will be community-led. It will emphasize extensive, well-coordinated communications among researchers, study participants, community stakeholders, and healthcare providers, and others to provide a comprehensive approach to address the affected community's health concerns. The NIH intends to allocate up to $10 million across 5 years. The deadline to submit proposals is July 21, and we anticipate starting research this fall. Thank you so much, and so proud to be working on this effort with you guys.
Thank you, guys. I want to thank the president for making this possible and thank these two guys for their hard work to actually implement this. This is a very big day, not just for the people of East Palestine, but for anybody who wants to understand the connection between the chemicals that we use every day and the effects that it has on people's health. No one has tried to do this in this particular way. I think it's going to benefit millions of Americans. We're going to know more than we knew because of the hard work of the guys standing next to me.
All right. That was great. Loved it. Glad they're doing it. They are not forgetting what those people went through. They are not going to leave them behind. This is an amazing day, my friends. And so much happening, obviously. Hard to keep up. 150, maybe 160 days into President Trump's second term. And yes, the results are in. And yes, more fake MAGA and more fake MAGA and more MAHA and more fake people are being exposed constantly. So there's nothing wrong with questioning, what you believe, or nothing wrong with questioning President Trump. That needs to be done. It needs to be done in a respectful way. And I think it has been. I think for the most part, it really has been. We haven't seen a lot of people turn their back on President Trump. A lot of people disagree with him. This is not what I voted for. I didn't want this. But you have to look at both sides of it. And it's great to see that you can have people who support President Trump disagree with him on certain things that he's doing. And so each issue needs to be taken very, very seriously. But this shows here more about Kennedy. We know what's happening with Iran, and I believe President Trump did the right thing. Very precise strikes, not boots on the ground, taking out the nuclear weapons. What if there was any nuclear in enrichment, any nuclear trucks in Iraq under George Bush Jr. This is what would have happened. President Trump is showing exactly what should and would happen when people are trying to acquire a nuclear bomb and trying to get the nuclear warheads. And this is how you deal with a country like Iran. He gave them notice. He gave them the opportunity. He gave them everything. And they said no. They called his bluff. So there you go. Trump always chickens out. I don't believe it. I don't believe it. And neither should you. So let's get into some more. Let me see if there's anything. There's a lot with Kennedy, obviously. He's doing some amazing things. And the media, I don't think the media is silent. It's just there's so many other things going on that you see a lot of stuff Kennedy is doing right now is flying under the radar, and that's fine. I don't think there's anything wrong with that.
Judge.
I think Kennedy would probably prefer that, so he can just get the work done. And I knew this was going to happen. They were going to hit this, the New World Order on so many fronts at the same time. So many battles to be fought. This is the real war. The real war that we are facing is with this shadow government that has taken over this great nation, and President Trump and Kennedy trying to get this country back, trying to get us back on track. That's what I see. You can agree, you can disagree with me. It doesn't matter to me. But that's what I see happening here. By their fruits, by their actions, we will know them. I had a great time writing the Kennedy and Trump book. And as kind of that road comes to an end, and the next book, Shadows of Light, is just about done too. Just got to get the cover work, and I got to write something for the back of the book, which is what they're waiting on. And then that one is out. The only thing left for the Kennedy and Trump book is the worldwide distribution. I just finished the final edits, hopefully the final edits. And so I hope to have the worldwide distribution here within a couple weeks. And then moving on to the next. Few more things coming up. 2025 is going to be a big year for me for writing for my books. And I'm so excited to get this out there, to share this with you, and to let it age like fine wine, which is what I think it will do. It will age. And I think with time, more people will read these books that I'm writing. And it's not for everybody, obviously. And I wrote it for my family, for my friends, for people that are interested in these topics too. And so I think the future generations, I think these books that I'm writing will be just as relevant now as they will be later down the road. Hopefully. Only time will tell. Only God knows for sure. I'm going to play this clip from RFK Jr. It's about 1 minute and 46 seconds.
My father and my uncle often said that civilization is ultimately judged not by the size of its armies or the throw weight of its weapons or the power of its industry or its monuments, but on how it cares for the least fortunate, particularly the elderly. A country that does not take care of its seniors has failed in humanity and has failed the test of civilization. What you're doing is more than just feeding people. It's holding together societies. And one of the biggest blights that we have right now is the blight of loneliness that people feel today. Atomized, they feel fragmented, they feel disconnected from their communities. And this gives them that connection. It gives that back to them. There's no more important job than this. It's God's work. You know, Jesus said in Matthew 25, he said, you fed me when I was hungry. You gave me drink when I was thirsty. And the person says, when did I feed you? Jesus said, you fed me when you fed the least of my brethren. And so it's God's work. It's patriotic. It's there's no more important job than this. I'm going to do everything I can as HHS secretary to make sure that this program continues to be funded and that continues to be supported, and that you feel like the heroes that you all are for doing the most important work that our society can do. Oh, I want to say thank you to all the volunteers and to the staff here for keeping this going. There's nothing more critical to what we're doing. So thank you all.
Another amazing video there by RFK Jr., who is just fighting so many battles for us, all about our health. I really want to get in. I don't know if I can play the whole thing. It's like an hour long. The actual thing maybe about 30 minutes or so. So I'll try to play some of it if I can. But it's been a fun journey. This is a good one here. Anytime I can get a wrestling reference, I'm all in. So here we go, right here. Look at this. Met today with Triple H and Stephanie McMahon to strategize about the upcoming President's Council on Sports, Fitness, and Nutrition. We definitely made some great choices there, especially with Triple H. The guy is he's a workaholic. He's a fitness fanatic and just an amazing athlete. A very respectable person. Doesn't drink, doesn't smoke, doesn't do drugs, and could still get in the ring today and do something very, very powerful in the wrestling ring if he needed to. And thankfully, that is not the case today. But I always love those wrestling references. Always have, always will. So that is just another great thing that is happening today in the world. Or actually, this was a couple weeks ago, June 13th. So I'm way behind. But it is nice to see that. Anytime we can get some wrestlers in there moving around, doing some things. And of course, we know a lot of that is probably due to the relationship with Stephanie McMahon's mother, Linda McMahon, who is the head of the Department of Education, who is working on dismantling the Department of Education right now. So next I'm going to go to this clip here. I missed a lot, as you can tell. It's been a while since I've done one of these shows. I was working on some other things and going to get back into the book reading for the Kennedy and Trump book. That will be probably another week or so. I'll get back into that maybe this weekend. We'll see. I'm going to play this little clip here, 2 minutes.
Well, this change, Martha, has been a long time coming. In 2002, the Government Oversight Committee held hearings about AIDS that lasted almost a year, and they issued a scathing report about the institutionalized conflicts of interest and corruption. One of the examples they gave was that 4 out of the 5 members who voted to recommend the rotavirus vaccine to the schedule had a direct financial interest in that vaccine. One of those individuals voted to add it to the schedule, and then he subsequently sold his vaccine. He owned and developed this, a guy called Dr. Paul Offit, sold his patent on the vaccine for $186 million. So he said he won the lottery because of his vote. That panel found that 97% of the people on the committee had conflicts of interest. This is a committee that we've gone up from 11 vaccines in 1986. Today, children get between 69 and 92 vaccines before they're 18. Not one of those vaccines has ever...
really high. Those are not all mandatory.
Those are all mandatory. And the reason there's 69 to 92 is some of the brands require 3 doses, okay. Some of them require 4. But none of them have been safety tested, except for the COVID vaccine. The only vaccine on the schedule that has gone through placebo-controlled trials prior to licensure was the COVID vaccine. So nobody has any idea what the risk profiles are on these products. And we don't know whether they have anything to do with the epidemic of chronic disease. Almost all the chronic disease, these are products that are designed to deregulate your immune system, to change your immune system for life. And we are now having an epidemic of immune dysregulation in our country, and we don't have an idea, but we have to investigate to see whether that has anything to do with it.
Okay, well, I guess that is that for that one. Um, all right, that was good. So I could find any more short clips. Otherwise, I'm ready to get into. I want to hear more about, this big beautiful bill. Just a lot of other stuff going on. I think it's time to get into it. It's time to get into the main event here. Let me pull this up. That's what she said. Let's go and we'll watch some of this together. Okay, probably not the whole thing, but about 30 minutes or so. Let's get into it. We'll play a little bit. Nice music.
Welcome and thank you for being here today. After our program, we'll take some questions from the press. To start off our press conference today, I'm honored to welcome to the stage Administrator of the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services, Dr. Mehmet Oz.
How many of you have had a pre-authorization issue in your family? Show of hands. It's about reflective of the national average. 85% of Americans say they've had pre-auth effective in ways they wish it hadn't. It's the number one complaint, not only from patients, but providers, doctors like myself are continually struggling with this issue. We have spoken frequently about how Health and Human Services and the agency in charge of Medicare, Medicaid, and the insurance plan, CMS, is open for business. We like to have private solutions when they're feasible. And today you're going to hear about one of the biggest ones possible, one that will address this issue of prior authorization. In 2023, the last data year for which we have strong data, the Medicare Advantage program, which administers care to total Medicare is about 68 million people. Half of that is Medicare Advantage. So it's 32 million people, a lot of folks. Partially or fully denied 3.2 million claims, initial requests for prior authorization. It's a lot of people, not just numbers. Those are individuals who often in the most vulnerable time in their lives needed something done and it was denied for one reason or another. Each week, on average, a physician handles about 40 of these pre-authorization issues and requests and spends about 12 hours a week on paperwork in general, often aimed at addressing the prior authorization issue. It frustrates doctors. It sometimes results in care that is significantly delayed. It erodes public trust in the healthcare system. It's something that we can't tolerate. This administration and under the leadership of Secretary Kennedy, this agency has not wanted and has been expressing its frustration. And for good reason, because of that, and because of folks who actually maybe entered into the industry because they had the right motivations at heart, we have just concluded a roundtable, one of the most impressive that I've been involved in, with the CEOs who represent about 75% of all covered lives in America. These folks represent the insurance companies that cover 3/4 of the American people, and it covers them across Medicare Advantage, across Medicaid, across commercial insurance, about 260 million people in general, in total covered by these plans. And there were more people being added while we were in the meeting. That's how much interest there is from industry in dealing with the problem that they don't like to have in their bailiwick either. These executives explain why they are signing this pre-authorization pledge to restore common sense to the process. Now, we've spoken to these folks and others in industry about the desire for them to maybe adopt a different strategy, one that actually is discussed in the Bible when it says the meek shall inherit the earth. And I always grew up thinking meek meant weak, but that's not what meek means. Meek means you have a sharp sword, a sword that could do real damage to people around you, but you decide electively to sheathe that sword and put it away for a while so you can do good. So you can do important things, or once in a while we have to get together, even if we're competitors, and agree. And that's what these insurance companies and hospital systems have done. They've agreed to sheathe their swords, to be meek for a while, to come up with a better solution to a problem that plagues us all. And this transition that's not happening, this teaching that's sort of spreading, is beginning to catch fire, in part because this administration has pushed so hard on these issues. We're hearing very innovative ideas For example, could we allow some physicians to be gold card physicians because they're so good at making the right care for the right patient that maybe they don't have to go through a pre-authorization? There's some systems that don't even do pre-authorizations because they have already evolved into having ways of giving feedback to doctors so they learn when they're ordering tests and medications that aren't the right for a solution to a particular problem, so they don't repeat those errors. At its best, that's what pre-authorization sought to do, but that's not what it's doing anymore. So for that reason, the pledge. And some of the highlights are in this chart to my right, so you can at least follow along. But I'll mention that the top 3 issues that we're focused on. The first is timely access for patients. This is a critical issue because imagine you're in a doctor's office and you've got a bad diagnosis and there's a procedure or test or treatment that you think is right for you, and you find out that you can't start that treatment for sometimes weeks, even longer. It's more frustrating than anything else in the process because at least that's something you do control. You don't control much else when you're in a physician's office with that kind of a crisis, and yet it's withheld. And these approvals with this new pledge will be streamlined. It will happen very quickly. Necessary care will be delivered when it's needed in the right way. So you get both quality and you get timing, which goes along with that quality. And you won't get that treatment after all the paperwork clears. You'll just get it because there won't be paperwork. We'll be streamlining it. Patients should not be waiting because bureaucratic hurdles are blocking their critical treatment. Second big issue is to make sure that we are saving the system with efficiency. I bring that up because one of the biggest challenges we have within CMS, which is again Medicare, Medicaid, the exchanges, is that it's an inefficient process by which we do things, by which we give feedback, by which we send bills and collect. The red tape creates massive problems. We want less red tape, and if we do that, we can cut tens of billions of dollars of administrative waste. It's a lot of money that we throw at solutions that we don't work for us because we haven't built a digital infrastructure that's being addressed. With less red tape, that means more resources for patients, which is part of the reason these major companies got together, working together with the Health and Human Services Agency to try to take a shot at the pre-auth process. We'll standardize, we'll harmonize, we'll get folks talking together, and the pre-authorization process, if it's done correctly, for ongoing procedures, for medications and the like, will create a seamless relationship between patients and providers, which is the whole goal in the first place, to allow them to free them to get across the finish line with their treatment plans, but to do it together with the insurance entities, the folks that are responsible for these different plans. And thirdly, transparency. And transparency comes with accountability. If you now know what's going on, you now have the responsibility of dealing with it. We have common data standards. They're going to be adopted, and public dashboards are going to reveal to you and to patients what's going on. So we'll be able to audit if this is really happening, because although we're hopeful, this is hard to do. And folks sometimes change their mind. We don't want that to happen. So we're going to trust but verify by having this transparency and accountability. All the stakeholders, the payers, the providers, the patients are going to see real world performance. And by having that, they'll be able to assess whether this is clearly and consistently accomplished. Now, the pledge is not a mandate. This is not a bill or rule. This is not legislated. This is an opportunity for industry to show itself. Participation is voluntary. But by the fact that 3/4 of the patients in the country are already covered by participants in this pledge, it's a good start. And the response has been overwhelming, gratifyingly so. The effort took place with the government as a sponsor, as a steward, as a cheerleader. It was led by wonderful people who realized that we had an opportunity to do good. And that government, you don't have to always do it yourself. You can use the power to convene to pull together powerful interests. We have discussed extensively with individual physicians this idea. We've talked about it with health systems, with associations, with congressional partners. You'll hear from some of them in a moment. CMS is going to publish a full list of participating plans later this summer with some details of how it's going to roll out. And the initial commitments, like, for example, code reductions, a number of procedures that would have to be subjugated to pre-authorization or similar limitations, the continuity of care protections to make sure that you don't lose coverage when you switch between plans. It's going to go live by January 26th. It's a fast timeline, but in 7 months, we'll be able to give to the American people something they've been asking for, something that's been in the news recently because of the difficulty of obtaining it, which is the freedom from prior authorization when used incorrectly. So what's the blueprint for broader reform? Because we see this as the first of a much larger opportunity. This is getting everyone together on a pain point, a thorn in everyone's side, a pebble in our shoes, but the real opportunity is use this as the first and very important step in building a larger blueprint, because it's not just about prior authorization. It's a template for administrative simplification to take the paperwork out of the process and put patients over paperwork. There's going to be a single FHIR-based electronic workflow. FHIR is a fast healthcare interoperability resource. So it's a standardized way for information exchange across systems. We'll have real-time decision-making for most electronic requests by 2027. We're going to have to work with providers, with doctors, many of whom, maybe half potentially, aren't using these kinds of technologies routinely in their office practice when they interact with insurers. We want that to change. We don't have a slowing down of the process. There shouldn't be paper, there shouldn't be faxes, there shouldn't be letters being sent. They should all be done digitally and automatically. And 90-day continuity should exist for authorizations when patients switch insurers. So you never fall through the cracks. Again, another pain point that many patient groups are bringing to us. The future is a system where carriers compete on value and outcomes. They compete on value and outcomes. They do not compete on issues like confusing portals and who can obfuscate the most and delay the process the most. That's not how they want to win, and that's not how they're going to win. We want to recognize the insurers who've done this, and they have stepped up. They're sharing data in ways that we are very honored by. They're willing to be meek in the process in ways that we had not even initially anticipated. They're accepting performance targets. They're offering commitments that go just beyond the profits that are involved in this process, although we're hopeful that we'll actually save some money through this process, because we won't be wasting the amount of money that is often spent unnecessarily when documents are sent back and forth, taking up precious time without changing the overall results. This shows what's possible when policymakers get together with payers and they can join forces to make the care faster, simpler, and more affordable for the American people. So what comes next? Well, today's the beginning, and it really is just that. As this process rolls out, we're going to be seeing exactly how the engineering occurs. CMS is engaging with providers to find out how they can refine documentation procedures, because that's often where the entire process gets stuck. The records never get out of the doctor's office in a timely fashion. We have patient advocates identifying low-value codes. There's some things we should not be pre-authorizing anymore, and we should stop that, and the insurance industry agrees with that, by the way. The health IT innovators who are out there who want to help, there's an opportunity for them to extend real-time prior authorization. So literally, as the decision is being made that you as a patient need a test or a medication, the decision is at the same time made by the insurance company that it's okay. And this is going to allow us to next proceed into looking at ideas with pharmacy and behavioral health. So those opportunities and pre-authorization processes are accelerated. In closing, I'm going to applaud the insurance companies for taking a very thoughtful, brave first step. That stated, I know that we're going to have to keep watching what everyone's doing carefully. I want to be clear about that reality. If the insurance industry cannot address the needs of pre-authorization by themselves, there are government opportunities to get involved. They might not be as nimble, but they will be used if we're forced to use them. We've, I think, convinced all the folks to come to the table, and I'm optimistic with that we're going to be successful. And there's a lot to be said about this, but I want to bring some folks in who have been very actively engaged in this process. And I'm going to start with a gentleman who's known to many of you because he's been on television in front of tens of millions of people playing an active role as a doctor, although he's not a doctor in real life. But he does have a health problem that has, and it's chronic. So it's going to force him to deal with the pre-authorization system. And this is an exact kind of situation where you don't want pre-auth hindering and limiting your ability to get the care you need. Some of you know him as Dr. McSteamy from Grey's Anatomy, but Secretary Kennedy and I call him friend Eric Dane. Eric, come on up. And I'll have Eric share his diagnosis when he comes up. He's been very public about it, which is a brave thing to do. But I also appreciate you making time in your schedule to address America about pre-authorization. I was told not to take his talking points, and I did.
Don't take my words. Thank you, Mr. Administrator Oz. I'm Eric Dane. Some of you may know me from TV shows such as Grey's Anatomy, which I play a doctor, but I am here today to speak briefly as a patient battling ALS, also known as Lou Gehrig's disease. When that diagnosis hits and you find out that you're sick, your life becomes filled with great uncertainty. And the worst thing that we can do is add even more uncertainty for patients and their loved ones with unnecessary prior authorization. Anything we can do to give patients more certainty with fewer delays is a worthwhile endeavor. I've been fortunate and have the means to access great care. I'm lucky. Not everyone is in the same position. I am acutely aware of that. I applaud the insurance industry coming together with officials from CMS and HHS to take these steps in the right direction. Today is about all those who need more certainty, faster answers, and more hope for recovery. Thank you.
You can't capture the pain of the pre-authorization process without hearing from patients. So I appreciate Eric making the time. Physicians live through this continually, and I have two physicians who have volunteered to come over from Capitol Hill despite all the crazy busyness over there and spend some time with us. Senator Marshall is a good friend. We spent a lot of time brainstorming ways to improve healthcare in America, and pre-authorization, if you get two doctors together, always comes up. Senator Marshall.
Well, good afternoon, everybody. I want to say a special thanks to Secretary Kennedy and CMS Administrator Dr. Oz, and especially President Trump for inviting me to participate in today's event to address the #1 bureaucratic nightmare facing doctors and patients, prior authorization. Now, long before I ran for Congress, I practiced OBGYN for some 25 years, and I vividly remember a patient I once had scheduled for an infertility surgery. She'd taken time off work and arranged help at home, only to be told the morning of her procedure that her insurance company had added another step to the prior authorization process, abruptly canceling her surgery. Now, whether you need a hip replacement or a heart catheterization, many patients feel their critical care has been delayed by an opaque and burdensome prior authorization process. It's something I hear about all the time back home. Moreover, physicians and nurses complain the process has become increasingly onerous because of constantly changing requirements, often demanding more time to navigate the red tape than to complete the pre-surgery medical workup. Today, by having all the players in the room, we hope to see a common sense solution to streamline and improve our healthcare system. We must prioritize patients' health over corporate profits and arbitrary cost-cutting measures. For nearly my entire time in Congress, I fought to reform the prior authorization process in Medicare Advantage. Today's event moves us closer to that goal, ensuring patients receive timely, life-saving, and health-restoring care. Again, I just look forward to working with Secretary Kennedy, Administrator Oz, and insurers together to overhaul this process. I'm going to continue to champion this fight in Congress and support their efforts. And again, I'm just proud to stand alongside President Trump's A-team as we work to make healthcare more patient and provider friendly for doctors, nurses, and patients alike. Next, I'm just proud to introduce one of my very good friends, a fellow physician, a urologist still practicing medicine, Congressman from the great state of North Carolina, Dr. Greg Murphy. Greg?
Thank you, Secretary Kennedy, and thank you, Dr. Oz. How did we end up here? I think that's a real question. I can say now, after 32 years in clinical practice, which I still see patients, how did we get here? I think that's really critical. I think we all know that the maternal-fetal bond is probably the strongest human relation there is. I think the second.
Sorry, I do hate to skip around a little bit, but just for time's sake, I did want to make sure that I get to RFK Jr., the man that the book and the series is pretty much based on. So I want to make sure that I do get to some of RFK Jr., but you can watch the whole thing. It is on the HHS, Human Health and Services YouTube channel. It is there. The full thing says it's about 59 minutes. Obviously, it's not that long. It starts at around the 12-minute mark, so it could be about 40 minutes or so. Kennedy is about to speak here. I want to get into this There are some interviews that I missed from Kennedy. There's one maybe about a week or two ago that I have not covered. So I do hope to cover that at some point here. But I just needed to get caught up. I'm almost at 140 episodes of this show, of this podcast, and really thinking, where do I end it? Where do I go? Where do we go now? So we'll end it pretty soon. But
Secretary Kennedy.
Secretary Kennedy, here's the man.
Thank you, Dr. Oz. During the transition last January, one of the people I was bringing on as a special government advisor was a long-term friend of mine called Jake Levine. And I asked Jake, what can you give me an agenda, the most important things that we can do very quickly as soon as we get in there? And Jake called a professor at Harvard named David Cutler, a famous economist who spent an entire career studying the healthcare system and advising reforms. And he posed that question to Dr. Cutler. He said, what is the single most important thing that we could do to improve the patient experience in this country? We could do very, very quickly without regulations and without legislation. And Dr. Cutler immediately said to him, you can convene the insurance companies and get them to voluntarily agree to end the scourge of pre-authorization. And very early on in the administration, we brought in Chris Klump. And Chris Klump, I'm going to ask Jake and Chris Klump to come up and join me. Chris Klump was a very, very uber successful healthcare entrepreneur from Silicon Valley who specialized in healthcare technology. And in building his company, he had met virtually all of the big insurance CEOs in this and hospital CEOs in this country. And he spent the last several months calling them each up one by one and getting them to agree to this program. And it was an extraordinary effort. I'm so happy for his leadership, for Jake's leadership on this issue. The two of them have been working hand in hand to make this extraordinary day happen. And it's so important for our country because this has been one of the worst things. As Dr. Oz pointed out, 85% of Americans say that they have had delays in healthcare because of prior authorization. And the doctors hated. Doctors report that it cost them 12 to 15 hours a week filling out forms. Some nurses are spending over half their time dealing with the administrative burden of this. And healthcare is often delayed to Americans. The cost of administration is enormous to our healthcare system, and we're going to be able to eliminate a lot of those costs by what we're doing today. I just want to read you an experience that a very close friend of mine, who's a physician, had with this, one of his many experiences, had experiences with pre-authorization, and this is all too common in our country. A patient from New Jersey suffering from severe heart failure was transferred to New York Presbyterian Hospital for a life-saving transplant by my friend, the doctor. To survive until a donor heart became available, the patient urgently needed a mechanical heart pump, a device essential to sustain their life during the wait. The insurance company had approved the heart transplant, but then denied authorization for the mechanical heart pump, deeming it unnecessary. The decision created a perplexing contradiction. The patient was cleared for a transplant, but not for the critical device needed to keep him alive until the transplant could happen. With the patient in the operating room and his life at stake, the medical team was faced with a profound ethical challenge. Should they adhere to the insurance company's denial, which would likely lead to the patient's death, or take action to save the patient's life, knowing it could result in legal or professional consequences? The medical team chose to prioritize the patient's survival. in planning the mechanical heart pump, this decision
Okay,
will help patients live long enough.
I really hate to interrupt Kennedy right now, but there is something very big that President Trump just posted about 8 minutes ago, 12 minutes ago now, on Truth Social. So I do want to show that, and let's talk about this a little bit. Here's what President Trump just posted here. Congratulations to everyone. It has been fully agreed by and between Israel and Iran that there will be a complete and total ceasefire in approximately 6 hours from now, when Israel and Iran have wound down and completed their in progress final missions for 12 hours, at which point the war will be considered ended. Officially, Iran will start the ceasefire, and upon the 12th hour, Israel will start the ceasefire, and upon the 24th hour, an official end to the 12-day war will be saluted by the world. Wow. During each ceasefire, the other side will remain peaceful and respectful. On the assumption that everything works as it should, which it will, I would like to congratulate both countries, Israel and Iran, on having the stamina, courage, and intelligence to end what should be called the 12-day war. This is a war that could have gone on for years and destroyed the entire Middle East, but it didn't and never will. God bless Israel. God bless Iran. God bless the Middle East. God bless the United States of America, and God bless the world. President Donald J. Trump, President of the United States. Wow. Now that's cool. All right. Now we got something going. Now we got something cooking here. So great to hear, great to see. So happy if we if you can keep it. If you can keep it, it will be great. So we will see if they can actually keep it. I hope they can, and I hope it all works out. So now let's let the frothing of the mouth end by blowhards like Sean Hannity and Tucker Carlson. No, I like Tucker Carlson. No, it's okay to disagree with some people on certain things. Nothing wrong with that. So we're going to see where this goes. Where does this play out? I will be very curious to see that. I'm sure you are too. I'm just going to browse around a little bit. And while I do that, I'm going to play a little bit more from Secretary Kennedy. This is very important stuff for our country. Again, it's all about putting America first. So with the Iran and Israel war that is happening, if you want to call it that, you could argue either way, we're putting America first or not putting America first, but you got to have a little faith in President Trump, and you got to give him that room, that wiggle room to say, look, sometimes you do got to go to war. Sometimes you do got to bomb Iran. And that's what they did. 3 bombs, 3 areas, 3 sites, whatever you want to call it. Multiple bombs, obviously, many bombs, but you know what I mean. Bomb this site, bomb that site, bomb the 3rd site. Bomb Iran. John McCain fans may know that, if there are any out there. If there ever were, they would know exactly what I'm talking about. But we are dealing with so many things on so many fronts, and it's okay to have these arguments and these disagreements. There's nothing wrong with that. I have no issue with that. Just because somebody doesn't like something President Trump says, or they disagree with him on certain things, no, I'm not going to push that person to the side. You will know them by their fruits. You'll see the same cast of characters doing certain things. And yeah, sometimes there's going to be some major disagreements. And sometimes there are going to be disagreements that cannot be reconciled. You know, it's just the end. It's the end. Trump does not forget that. And it's so great to see Kennedy far away from all of that, far away from the foreign policy stuff, and just dealing with the big crisis that we have here in this country to make America healthy again. Again, so many fronts, so many battles, so many things that Trump has to tackle. He's only got 4 years, may only have 2, depending on if the Democrats get back. If they gain control of the House and the Senate, they could impeach him. They could boot him out of office, and within 2 years, less than 2 years, that could happen. I don't think it's going to happen, but it could happen. You'd have JD Vance in there after that, and they'll probably try to do the same thing to him too. So you would have some major issues, but we got the right people in place, and then all those people that Trump put in there, if the Democrats get control, well, they're all gone. So time is very short. It's very limited, and they have to right now prove to the naysayers and to the people who follow the naysayers that what they are doing is the right moves in the long term, and we will see. I don't think we've ever seen a president handle Iran the way that President Trump has. I don't think we've ever seen a president handle Israel the way that President Trump has. He's not kowtowing, whatever it is. He's not just doing whatever Israel says. And at the same time, Israel is not treating President Trump the way they treat other presidents. And he does have their back. And he does have the best, our best interest for world peace. President Trump wants a Nobel Peace Prize. He wants that. He wants to bring peace. He does not want it, even if it's just ego-driven. He's not going to do anything that is going to bring us to World War III. He's not going to back down from it. This is like somebody who, they challenge him, they want to fight him, and it's like, he doesn't want to fight. But finally you push him to that point, he steps in the ring, and all of a sudden you see people kind of backing off, like, okay, maybe this isn't the fight we want right now, or maybe we want to rethink this. Or, you ever been in that spot where this bully is just running their mouth, or maybe you've been that bully and they're running their mouth, and all of a sudden somebody steps up to the plate to fight back, and you're like, ooh, okay, maybe we could talk this out now. Maybe there's another way we can go with this. I don't know if you've ever been in that spot. I have. I've been on both sides. I've been on both sides of that. And you learn something. And we are learning a lot from what we are seeing, how President Trump is dealing with these countries, how he is dealing with the people that are not supposed to be in this country. And we are learning a lot about what RFK Jr. is doing by exposing all of these fake foods, these fake dyes, all the stuff that is poisoning our children, killing all of us without us probably even knowing. And Kennedy will be the first person to say, look, you can't blame the people that didn't know about it. You can't blame the people that are eating these food just because it's there. Who was stopping all of the poisons from coming in? Do you blame the people that are eating the poison, or do you blame the people that are making the poison? And I think over time we're going to see exactly what we all know is you blame the people that are making it, and maybe they didn't know, but at some point somebody knew. And if nobody knew, then you have a bigger problem. That's why Kennedy fired a bunch of people in the FDA, fired a bunch of people because either they had no idea what was going on, or they were part of what was going on. Either way, if you mess up at your job, sometimes you get fired. And hopefully you learn from that. But if there's no consequences, why would those people stop doing any of these crazy things, any of these bad things? So I do hope that we are going to see a lot of changes, and I believe we are in these next 2 years. So it's very encouraging for me to see President Trump talking about we are now at a total ceasefire with Israel and Iran. How long it's going to stay, how long we're going to keep it, it's not really up to President Trump. He can only do so much. He can only put the right people in the right spot and then say, look, you guys have got to get it together. This can't be about we're just going to just have endless wars here. But when you get a response like this, when you get Iran to agree to a ceasefire and you get Israel to agree to this ceasefire, if this is real, if this is true, if this can bring about the world peace, that we all want to see, this is great. This is a great thing. But if we're just going to be hands off on Iran, hands off on Israel, hands off on all these countries, and just say, we're just going to look the other way, do whatever you want, it's going to come back to haunt us. And this isn't something that President Trump started, but he has got to finish this. He's got to put an end to this. So somebody's got to step in and say, look, we've got to do something different here. What we've been doing for 50, 60, 70 years is not working. These endless wars are not working. And so Trump steps in and says, all right, you guys want to fight, and let's duke it out and let's finish it. Let's finish it. And that's not what these countries want. They want the endless wars. And it's not really just these countries. It's the people that make money off of these countries having these endless wars. So if you can make it so it's not profitable for them, how do we make peace profitable? I don't know, but I think it's worth looking into. And if there's a way to make it profitable to have peace in this world, I think it's worth it. Hey, Jayhan. So that's just some great news that is coming out of what Trump just posted a couple minutes ago. And if you post anything else, I'll definitely try to cover that too. But I'm really happy to see this. And I hope it stands. And I know it's going to get downplayed, and the media will downplay it, and the people who don't like Trump will downplay it, and people who love Trump, they'll play it up. And then the rest of us will just be here to say, okay, this is what we think about it. And there's nothing wrong with that. Once again, just because the MAGA and the Maha people, we can agree to disagree, we can go back and forth on it, doesn't mean we're at each other's throats. What the elitist Democrats, I should say, what they do is they try to do this behind doors. They don't want the public to see them debating and arguing and talking about this as normal human beings should, because they want to act like they're just one big party, one big jackass party that has no disagreements, which we know is absolutely not true. There are no two people that are going to agree on everything. It's just not going to happen. It doesn't happen. It is not real to think that we're just going to agree with everything and that's it. Our party, our team, boom, done. When we start thinking in that mentality, I think that's what got us into a lot of these problems where they say publicly, yeah, we agree with what the Democrats are saying. And then privately, they're like, oh, this is bad. This is bad news. So anyways, it's very nice to see President Trump coming out, talking like a real human being. I'm going to go back and play some of RFK Jr.'s while I collect my thought.
To receive a successful heart plan, my friend, the doctor, was then sued by the insurance company. And ultimately that lawsuit was dropped. But there are many situations in this country where that ethical decision for one reason or another would not have been made, and people lose their lives because of prior authorization. In the past, the insurance industry has made commitments to prior authorization, but they have not kept them. And in this case, we think it's very, very different because one, the number of patients covered by this is unprecedented. As Dr. Oz said, 257 million patients are covered by the group that we met with this morning. And while we were in that meeting, another company joined the group. And we expect we're going to have rolling enrollment, so we expect many other companies to also join. The other difference is we have standards this time. We have deliverables. We have specificity on those deliverables. We have metrics, and we have deadlines, and we have oversight. So we're all going to be, I'm very grateful to the insurance company for stepping up and the hospital systems for stepping up. We're all very, very grateful to President Trump for his leadership in giving us the impetus to make this happen. This has been something that we have been struggling with in this country for decades. 2 decades of presidents have promised to do this, and none of them have succeeded. Congressman Murphy has been working on this issue for 35 years. And it's a priority for him, and it's been a priority for many people in Congress. And can I ask Congressman Murphy and Senator Marshall to come up as well? So, today, because of President Trump's leadership, we are agreeing to this momentous and monumental achievement. And we hope to see the dividends of this success story immediately materialize as a better experience for for millions, hundreds of millions, literally, of American patients. I want to thank all of you for being here, and we're happy to take questions.
So the dashboard is something you should be able to audit as well. It would hopefully be public, so people would have transparency into the process. And the insurance companies have all sort of felt the same, at least sung from the same hymnal.
Okay, I'm going to
that
go
the major
back.
limiting factor are doctors' offices.
I'm just going to
ability
pause that.
provide-
I mean, this is such great news. I just, it kind of sucks that it was overshadowed by what is happening in Iran, but this is great news here. Peace in the Middle East is not just a fairy tale. It's not just a dream. It is what the world needs. We need this. This will help the country. This will help put everybody in a much safer spot. So this is great, and we'll see what happens. I'd like to see some things. I don't know all of the details about this. I'd like to see Iran, the Iranian people. I'd like to see them be able to take their country back. With the Ayatollah in there, I just don't think that is going to happen as long as you have him in there. So that is why it's like regime change. Yeah, it seems like a good thing, but it's up to the people there. It's up to the people there. And then it's like, well, they have no means. Even if they wanted to rise up and even if they wanted to fight, what could they do and what are they willing to risk? It puts them in a very, very tough spot. The Iranian people are very, very wise, very smart people, very oppressed people. Anytime you don't have a free country where people have freedoms, you have problems. That's why everybody wants to come to the greatest country in the world, the USA. I get it. I would too. We have problems, yeah, but we don't have a lot of the issues that some of these other countries, and they don't have a lot of issues that we do either. So when there's freedom, sometimes you think, well, we got too much freedom. You have too little freedom, and you want to find that balance. And it's a never-ending process. There's never going to be this perfect system while we are here on this world. But I do believe that the greatest system that we have today, that we have ever had on this world, is the United States. Maybe there's something that is copied that, or something that the United States is a bastard child of that came thousands of years ago. But as for right now, this is the greatest country. People want freedom. They want to be free. And we can't have a new world order that goes around and frees these people from their oppressors, and then we become the same thing we were trying to free them from. These are lessons learned by some very intelligent people, some very powerful people who have watched this country get taken over, who have watched this country take over other countries, and who have watched millions, maybe billions of people die and said, no more, no more. This is it. This is enough. We got to do something different. We have to try to do something different. And that's what I believe President Trump is doing. And I understand why people who have watched this and say, here we go again, President Trump is doing the same exact thing that all these other people are doing. I understand where they're coming from. I just don't agree that that is what President Trump is doing. I think there are some people out there that just want to believe they're all the same. Doesn't matter who gets in. Doesn't matter who the president is. Well, then you've already lost. Your death it's already come. You have nothing to hope for. So you can only hope that I don't know. I don't even know what you hope for then. If you just think that every president is saying they all get voted in, the people have no power, if you just go down that road, then what are you even doing here? So let's hear Brett Baer and let's see what he's got to say about some big news that just happened a couple minutes ago. God bless the USA. That's all I can say.
Breaking news coming just now. Joining us this evening, Vice President J.D. Vance. Mr. Vice President, thanks for coming.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Just seconds ago, the president went to Truth Social and typed this. It has been fully agreed by and between Israel and Iran that there will be a complete and total ceasefire. Complete and total ceasefire is what he typed.
Yep.
What does that mean? How did it come about? What's the development here?
Well, we were actually working on that just as I left the White House to come over here. So that's good news that the president was able to get that across the finish line. I think what it means, Brett, is quite simple. First of all, the president, without, knock on wood, having a single American casualty, obliterated the Iranian nuclear program. We are now in a place where we weren't a week ago. A week ago, Iran was very close to having a nuclear weapon. Now, Iran is incapable of building a nuclear weapon with the equipment they have because we destroyed it. So that's a very, very big thing. Now, what that means, I think, is we have to talk to Iran and, of course, to Israel about what the future holds. Because while we have obliterated the Iranian nuclear program, our hope and our expectation is that they're not going to try to rebuild that program. And I think that's what the president is really trying to figure out here, is to build a long-term settlement here to where we can have peace in the region, where our regional allies and, of course, the American people, most importantly, can be secured, but where we can ensure that the destruction of the Iranian nuclear program that has already happened is not something they try to rebuild.
I want to get to the obliterated part in just a minute, but I just want to read this fully so I get the context here. Congratulations to everyone. It has been fully agreed by and between Israel and Iran that there will be a complete and total ceasefire in approximately 6 hours from now, when Israel and Iran have wound down and completed their in-progress final missions for 12 hours, at which point, the ceasefire for 12 hours, at which point the war will be considered ended. Officially, Iran will start the ceasefire, and upon the 12th hour, Israel will start the ceasefire, and upon the 24th hour, an official end to the 12-day war will be saluted by the world. During each ceasefire, the other side will remain peaceful and respectful on the assumption that everything works as it should, which it will. I would like to congratulate both countries, Israel and Iran, on having the stamina, courage, and intelligence to end what should be called the 12-day war. This is a war that could have gone on for years and destroyed the entire Middle East, but it didn't and never will. God bless Israel. God bless Iran. God bless Iran. God bless the Middle East. God bless the United States of America, and God bless the world. He seems confident that this is all coming together.
That's right.
And when you left the White House, were you thinking this was all gelling here?
When I left the White House, I thought that we might be able to get it across the finish line before this broadcast, and it looks like the president has been able to do that. I mean, look, he's been working the phones constantly. Frankly, before the 12-day war started, but certainly over the past 12 days, the president's been extremely clear about America's national objective here. It is to create a world where Iran cannot build a nuclear weapon. We, of course, destroyed the nuclear program that they had, and the president told the entire team, we're going to work to make sure that they don't try to rebuild that nuclear capability in the future. And it's, look, this is a great thing. For Israel, think about this. They've accomplished an important military objective. They've helped us destroy the Iranian nuclear program. They've also destroyed the conventional missile capability of Iran that threatened the country of Israel. For the Iranians, I think this is a new opportunity to actually pursue the path of peace. As I said yesterday, what the Iranians have showed through their support of terror networks, through their now failed effort to build a nuclear weapon, is that they're just not very good at war. And I think the president really hit the reset button and said, look, let's actually produce long-term peace for the region. That's always been his goal. I actually think when we look back, we will say the 12-day war was an important reset moment for the entire region.
Would you be surprised if Iran is sending out signals that it doesn't have a specific ceasefire plan? How would the communication have been with the Iranians to get this level of confidence to put out that detailed statement?
Well, one of the things I've learned, Brett, about the Iranians in the past, 4 or 5 months that I've been in this job is what they say publicly and privately can sometimes be very different. I think what the Iranians have shown very clearly is they don't want this war to go on for much longer. Their air defenses have been totally destroyed. Their conventional missile program has been largely destroyed. And of course, their nuclear program has been obliterated, as I said before. So I think the Iranians are at a place where they don't want to keep on fighting. You saw the president, and I don't have the truth in front of me, but he talked about the next 6 hours finalizing the attacks. I mean, what I think what he's talking about is right now for the American people watching, it's dark over there. That's typically when the Israelis and the Iranians have been shooting at each other. I think there's some recognition that that might continue for another few hours. And tomorrow really is a new day. The end of the 12-day war, the end of the Iranian nuclear program. And I really do believe the beginning of something very big for peace in the Middle East.
So you said totally obliterated. The president has said totally obliterated the Iran nuclear program.
Yeah.
Do you know for sure where all the highly enriched uranium is?
Well, Brett, I think that's actually not the question before us. The question before us is, can Iran enrich the uranium to a weapons grade level, and can they convert that fuel to a nuclear weapon? And we know, based on the success of our mission, of course, the leadership of the president, but the incredible skill of our military, that the two mission objectives are completely successful. We know that they cannot build a nuclear weapon. Now, you asked about the highly enriched uranium.
Yeah, like 900 pounds of it.
But what we know, Brett, is that uranium is something that exists in very large supply. Our goal was to bury the uranium, and I do think the uranium is buried, but our goal was to eliminate the enrichment and eliminate their ability to convert that enriched fuel into a nuclear weapon. I think that's an important point, Brett, because so many of the folks who have focused on the highly enriched uranium,
Sure, 60%.
the main focus, Brett, has been to destroy their enrichment capacity, because we don't want that 60% uranium to become 90% uranium. That's the real concern, and that's what was so successful about our mission.
So after all this, if the Iranian government survives as is, what's to stop it from rebuilding over time if they in fact moved the 60% highly enriched uranium? You know, that's the concern.
No, the big concern, Brett, and this is again what we destroyed, is their ability to enrich uranium. If they have 60% enriched uranium, but they don't have the ability to enrich it to 90%, and further, they don't have the ability to convert that to a nuclear weapon, that is mission success. That is the obliteration of their nuclear program, which is why the president, I think, rightly is using that term. But here's the question. If Iran is desperate to build a nuclear weapon in the future, then they're going to have to deal with a very, very powerful American military again. Our hope is that the lesson that the Iranians have learned here is, look, we can fly a bunker buster bomb from Missouri to Iran completely undetected without landing once on the ground, and we can destroy whatever nuclear capacity you build up. I think that lesson is what's going to teach them not to rebuild their nuclear capacity.
Yesterday, were you speaking on the president's behalf when you said he was not interested in regime change?
Well, Brett, what I've said is the American military, that is not our mission, as regime change. Our mission was to destroy the nuclear facilities and the nuclear program of Iran, which we, of course, did. I think what the president's also said is that the Iranian people want to make a decision about regime change. That's between the Iranian people and the regime. Of course, we support freedom fighters all around the world, but our mission was to destroy the nuclear facilities, and that's what we did.
So you don't think there's any mixed message when he goes to Truth Social and says it's not politically correct to use the term regime change, but if the current Iranian regime is unable to make Iran great again, why wouldn't there be a regime change? Miga.
Well, I think what the president is saying very clearly, Brett, is if the Iranian people want to do something about their own leadership, that's up to the Iranian people. What the American national security interest here is very simple. It's to destroy the nuclear program. That's what we've done. And now that the 12-day war appears to be effectively over, we have an opportunity, I think, to restart a real peace process. And Brett, this is not just about two countries, Iran and Israel. All of these Gulf Arab states, they want peace. They want to invest. They want to build artificial intelligence hardware. They want to sort of come into the new economy. And that was impossible when you had Iran that was, as the president said, acting like a bully across the Middle East. We really think that if the Iranians are smart about the path forward, this could be a new dawn of an economic age of prosperity, of course, for our Gulf Arab allies, for us, for the Israelis, for everybody. But it's going to require the Iranians play it smart from here.
The president called it very weak, the Iran missile firing on the U.S. base in Qatar, Al Udeid. Was it a face-saving move? How do you get from that, firing missiles at a U.S. base, to a ceasefire, as he details in this Truth Social?
Well, as the president said, they actually gave us some warning here. And we think they gave us some warning because they didn't want to kill Americans and they didn't want to escalate. There's definitely some symbolism to this, Brett. If you look at the Iranian attack, it was 14 missiles that they telegraphed ahead of time. We dropped 14 bunker buster bombs. As the president told me earlier, our missiles, our bombs were a little bit bigger than their bombs. Our bombs actually accomplished the goal of eliminating their nuclear program. But look, we're happy, again, to restart the peace process as the president just did today.
Was the message delivered directly to the U.S. or through an emissary?
The message is always delivered through some sort of intermediary. That's been consistently true of the Iranians. Of course, we'd love to talk to them. The president's been clear about this. We'd love to have a direct conversation about how we move this thing forward, because, again, we got to step back here. Why did the president do what he did over the past week? It's so that we could destroy their nuclear program. If they try to rebuild it, they're going to be on the wrong end of American power once again. We don't want that. I think they don't want that, but the ball's in their hands.
You've been reluctant, or at least cautious, about getting engaged previously, and that has been public. What made you sign on to this action this time?
Well, I think the president has been very clear, and I've always agreed with the president, that Iran can't have a nuclear weapon. And you try to run the diplomatic process as much as you possibly can. When the president decided that wasn't going to work, he took the action that he had to take. Now we're in a new phase. That action was successful. We had a wildly successful military operation to take out their nuclear program. Now let's go on to the next phase. And I think the president, look, sometimes he's willing to use peace. Sometimes he's willing to use the military. I think it really depends on what the Iranians do from here.
And what do you think they do from here?
Well, it's an open question, Brett. I don't want to predict what the other side will do, but I think that I know what we'll do if they continue to pursue a nuclear weapon. And I hope they don't choose that path, because I know the president wants to see the Middle East become peaceful and prosperous in the future. That's not going to happen if Iran pursues a nuclear weapon again.
And for the people, so we talked about the people who believe that this is going towards World War III, especially in your own party. There's a section that's very vocal. There's another section that says you should take out this regime because it's evil and horrible and has done horrible things for decades. How do you square those two sides? And can this regime stay in place and still have a peaceful, reaction relationship with the U.S.?
Well, I think the president has squared those two sides quite well. One, because he's the leader of the movement, and a lot of people trust the president, as they should. They recognize they're not seeing the same intelligence. They're not seeing the same classified documents. They trust the president to do a good job. But importantly, Brett, I think he's threaded the needle quite well here. We had a very particular objective. It was profound and difficult to accomplish.
Do you
the
think
elimination of the Iranian nuclear program.
think they were
and I
close?
think the president successfully did that. You're asking, were the Iranians close to a nuclear weapon? Brett, they were very close to a nuclear weapon. And what I encourage my fellow Americans to think about here is that a week ago, the Iranians were quite close to achieving a nuclear weapon. Now they cannot build a nuclear weapon. That is the biggest testament to the president's leadership and to the success of our mission. In 1 week, without, thank God so far, not losing a single American casualty, we have taken what was a threatening nuclear program that could have destabilized the entire world. Now that program is gone. We did it through effective presidential leadership and also some very, very competent work from our troops.
How often does it happen where you're going to do an interview and you get a Truth Social seconds before? You have some sense of it, but it's pretty detailed, where you are being asked about something the president has just put out.
In this administration, Brett, it happens quite a bit, actually, but we knew this was coming. The draft, it was interesting. I just read the draft about 2 minutes before we went on the air. It was a little bit different from what the president had showed me a couple of hours ago. But again, I knew that he was working the phones as I was on the way over here. So I knew exactly what we were going to do. And look, I love that about this presidency and this administration, is he's always working. He doesn't say, the vice president's going to do an interview, so I'm going to stop doing anything. He says, we're going to do the American people's business. The vice president knows what I'm trying to accomplish. And if I get it done, great, because we're going to talk about it and celebrate it, because it is a thing to celebrate. I can't emphasize this enough, Brett. We have destroyed the Iranian nuclear program. 0 Americans have died. That's an amazing, amazing thing. Americans, whether Democrats or Republicans, we should be celebrating that.
Mr. Vice President, we appreciate you coming and rolling with the punches as well. Thank you for the time.
Thanthis, Brett. Good to see you.
Hey, Sean Hannity
Very
here.
cool.
Hey, click here to subscribe
there's JD
to
Vance
Fox News YouTube page
giving,
and catch our hottest.
This guy could be the next president of the United States after President Donald J. Trump. And I can see why. I can see exactly why. He has everything, all that it takes here. I just want to see if President Trump has posted anything new. If not, I'm going to move on here. But there's so much happening right now, and I'm just so grateful. So that's great. That's great. That's what we want. We need somebody to bring us peace, to bring peace here. Peace to the Middle East, real peace. And looks like it's happening. The naysayers are going to say nay. The yay sayers are going to say yay. But in the end, the American people and the people around the world of the free, loving world will get to decide what do they like, what do they not like. And I think that that is a great thing. So going forward, we will have some more updates. I'm sure. I just want to see if there is anything new that they have put out. I don't believe there is. Nope, that looks like all there is right now for Fox News and their coverage. So that's good stuff. I'll go back and play a little bit more of this here and
digital data to them. So we also want to keep doctors accountable. What percentage of doctors are actually able to send over a document in a timely fashion so this claim can be adjudicated instantaneously? Chris, you want to take the question about the platform it's going to be on?
Yep. Chris Klomp, Director of Medicare for CMS. Industry is pledged to provide metrics along several key dimensions, including numbers of percentages of code reductions requiring prior authorization, as well as adherence to defined standards around timeliness and transparency of that process, as well as adoption of electronic prior authorization standards that are being rolled out as part of the regular rulemaking process by CMS, both for medical procedures and for pharmaceutical procedures. Those should be available on the AHIP website. We intend to publish those as well ourselves at CMS.
Dr. Oz, you mentioned you'd like to see a lot of services no longer subject to prior auth. Can you give us a list of what your top 5 would be, and has the industry agreed to any of these yet?
Industry wants to reduce the number of procedures. Let me give you some numbers, and I'll ask Chris to brainstorm on 5 ones that you think are particularly egregious, if you want. There are about 15,000 procedures generally that could be candidates for pre-auth. About 15,000 procedures generally. There's about 6,000 that get pre-auth, but they're not the same ones for every insurance company. So there's probably 2,000 or 3,000 really core events that you probably want to have pre-authorization for, also for the betterment of patients to make sure these procedures are done correctly. Knee arthroplasty, or arthroscopy as an example. So is the right patient getting it at the right time by the right physician for the right indication? And so if the insurance companies can narrow down the scope of the pre-authorization requirements to really address the ones that are most likely to be abused, it'll make the whole process more seamless. And they've argued actually that similar to what e-prescribe did, you create a set of standards and all of a sudden you can do electronic prescriptions. They think once they get this standardization process for pre-authorization, it would open the door for many other types of administrative burden reduction as well. Chris, 5 ideas you might have.
I'll give you a few. Colonoscopy, cataract surgery, 2-day stay, vaginal delivery, things that are pretty common that are less likely to be abused. I think the bigger point and what we're more focused on is the process and the principles by which appropriate care is determined. Let me give you an example. Take a given episode of care that might require 2 different imaging studies as well as 3 different diagnostic lab studies all in sequence. Status quo today for many insurers is that each one of those separate components will individually be prior authorized. That's illogical. We know what the episode of care is. That episode of care arguably wouldn't require and shouldn't require prior authorization at all. But if it does, it should be done once, it should be done quickly, it should be done almost invisibly to the patient. And then the patient and the provider should be left to go about delivering care and the business of healing.
I'll add one other thing, is that there are 6 commitments that the insurers have made to us during our meeting today. And one of those is interoperability. And this is very critical because right now, each insurer has different rules for compliance. Some of them demand correspondence by fax. Some of them have their own portals on the internet where you upload the data, upload the patient's records. Other ones require a conversation by telephone. And so every time a doctor has to, or a doctor's office has to go through this process, they're facing this kind of Byzantine collection of procedures that they may not know for that particular insurance company. And if they do it wrong, if they correspond by fax, they get denied. And so these companies have now agreed to unify their protocols so that all of them will communicate in the same way and to standardize the process. And that's going to dramatically change the patient experience.
Secretary Kennedy, if I could just give you one example, Chris mentioned vaginal deliveries. Yes, we have to prior authorize vaginal deliveries, and whether the insurance company said we could deliver the baby or not, we went ahead. But to your point, every other week, one of my nurses would spend the better part of the day going through authorization processes for the deliveries upcoming in the next couple of months, and it becomes this ping pong delay game. And just the hassle factor. So rather than my nurse taking a blood pressure on one more patient that's sitting there with swelling and abdominal pain, trying to figure out they have preeclampsia or not, instead she's in the side room working on pre-authorization. So this is, as Dr. Murphy mentioned, it's an everyday hassle factor for us.
I'll just say one thing. I think one thing that we know today is a different age. Artificial intelligence should help this tremendously, and it should take out a lot of the variances that happen between doctors, hospitals, regions of the country, et cetera. But remember, artificial intelligence only is as good as what you put into it. So if your artificial intelligence, as some has already had happen, puts into a key to deny on basic tenets, then the denial rate is going to be the same. So I think this is another proof in the pudding that we're going to have to see, are these people actually putting into the AI things that are reasonable, things that are medically necessary, so that what's spit out is reasonable for the patient, most important for the patient, and reasonable for those who provide the care.
Hi there, Rachel Korzing with Bloomberg. It seems like you're leaving the door open to regulating here, and I was wondering if you could offer any color about what would lead you to believe that it would be necessary to regulate? Like, at what point do you decide enough is enough? Like, it's time to move forward with regulation here?
Was as high as the numbers that we quoted for the insurance executives that we just met with upstairs, 257 million Americans, that's not all the Americans. So we still have about 25% of Americans whose insurance companies were not represented in the meeting today. During the meeting, another one joined, but they're not all there. And until they're all there, we're going to keep pushing and shoving. And even the people who are already in the room agree that, there's a possibility you may have to help nudge people, herd people, so you'll make the right decisions in a timely fashion. But what Secretary Kennedy outlined is really critical. If we address the interoperability challenges of the industry, it actually helps them do what they probably want to do already. The beautiful thing about this pre-authorization process is, in discussions with these insurance executives in private, they all sort of want to do it. They just couldn't do it that easily. So using the ability of government, and under President Trump's leadership and Secretary Kennedy's passionate desire to address this, we made it clear that we're going to do this one way or the other. We're going to open doors to make it easier for you to do it yourselves without us getting involved. Please build the nimble, industry-friendly system that takes care of the American people. That's the challenge. And it doesn't work the way that we intend, as was outlined earlier, to trust but verify.
Thank you. Do you guys think that you're going to pursue legislation or regulation to codify this, or this, even if the insurance companies are willing to comply and be meek right now?
Absolutely. We've been working on this. Greg's been working on this for years now, and I think that we're very close. We've got the CBO score down on it, and I do think that we owe it to our patients to go ahead and codify something.
Hi, Adair Tuchin, Real Clear Politics. And then I'm just wondering, since these are voluntary reforms, what incentives will HHS provide to ensure insurers actually comply and follow through? And then if not, what recourse will patients have if delays or denials persist?
This is a very fast-moving process. We anticipate having in place rules that will protect patients, I should say rules, the industry having rules for themselves in place by the end of this calendar year. So 7 months from now, you're already going to be benefiting from these decisions if you're a patient. We are confident that some companies will come along, others might not. We have the ability through the rules process to enforce pre-authorization if necessary. It is a process that is necessarily limited by a series of steps that's there to protect all Americans. In this case, unfortunately, it's going to slow down the implementation of pre-authorization. That stated, I am optimistic, hopeful that we don't have to do that, but it's always in our back pocket if we need it. Thank you.
James Eustace with Real Clear Politics. What are some specific metrics and deliverables that you're looking for from health insurance companies?
We'd like to see meaningful reductions in code counts requiring prior authorization, including several of the obvious ones that we've talked about. A vaginal delivery. Why is that a question mark in this day and age? You're shaking your head. I do too. I think most insurers do as well. There's opportunity to eliminate that. That's actually not the set of metrics I think are most compelling and will be most felt by individual patients. It's the faxes and the phone calls that providers experience, where they then experience uncertainty, often at that moment, as was talked about by Dr. Oz and Secretary Kennedy and Eric, when they feel the greatest level of uncertainty, but also a despondence and despair and desire for knowledge and certainty and action, and they can't get it. So I am most focused, I think we are most focused on the set of metrics related to the process. One of the goals is that by 1/1/27, at least 80% of all prior authorization requirements will be adjudicated in real time at the point of care. That's a meaningful change in behavior. You're sitting with your provider, they're telling you the test that they want to order or the treatment plan that they'd like to issue. They put it into their EMR or their other software program through FHIR-based standards that CMS has identified and promulgated throughout the system, and immediately let you know where you are. And in the event that there isn't an approval, you have a transparent, clear timeline that you can hold your accountable or your insurance company accountable for, so that you can gain clarity, and that doesn't need to add to the burden of uncertainty. Those are the metrics that we care about. That's the patient experience, the beneficiary experience that we're focused on. This is why the secretary made this such a high priority early in the administration. What percentage are we of real-time same-day adjudication? Low single digits. Yeah, it's a little bit complicated by, you have to break down medical versus pharmacy, but it's low. And from a patient's perspective, exceptionally low. More than 50% of all prior authorizations are still paper-based using phones and faxes. So you can imagine the timeliness of that.
Hi, Chelsea Ceruso with Stat News. Dr. Oz, insurers made a similar pledge in 2018 that wasn't quite lived up to. What's different this time around?
Secretary Kennedy alluded to that. There was another effort in 2023. I think two things have changed. I mean, there's violence in the streets over these issues. This is not something that is a passively accepted reality anymore. Americans are upset about it. Secretary Kennedy made it very clear from the outset that we're going to deal with this issue one way or the other. We have legislation pending that would come in as well to codify some of these changes. But I think the major factor is the industry realizes that some of the things that are pre-authorized just don't make any sense. And they now believe that because we could actually create a interoperable digital system of connectivity with very agreed on standards, this actually could become a real-time process, which takes a lot of money out of the system. They estimated earlier today that it costs between $35 and $45 per documentation of pre-authorization for the doctor's office, costs the same amount for the insurance company for every single time. And there were 3.2 million documents last year for just Medicare Advantage. So multiply the numbers and you begin to realize we're throwing money away on administrative costs just financially. We're also wasting people's times. And we have the technology today to actually address this in a meaningful fashion. But the most important reality is the administration has made it clear we're not going to tolerate it anymore. So either you fix it or we're going to fix it. And I think they wisely have decided that they should fix it. I'm looking forward to seeing the results. Secretary Kennedy, thank you for giving us an opportunity.
Thank you all. Thank you all. And you know, I will add one other thing before closing. The digitalization and the interoperability of the system will allow us, that this is incentivizing, will allow us to do what we ultimately want to do during this administration, which is to begin the transition to outcome-based care, to value-based care. And, you know, Chris Klum walked away from a billion-dollar company in order to join us here, and he wasn't interested in prestige or power or position or salary. He's interested in changing this system, and we have from top to bottom in this agency now these people who have come in here who are interested in only one thing, which is to make this system functional, to make it, to rationalize it, to make it work, to make our country healthy again. Oh, I'm very grateful to all of you for all the work, Congressman Murphy, Senator and Oz and Jake Levine and Chris Klump and all the many people at this agency who have made this happen. And I'm very, very grateful to the insurance CEOs for stepping up today. It was an extraordinary meeting. It was filled with people who were not complaining. They were welcoming this opportunity. They were showing their idealism, showing their belief in this country, showing the idealism that got them into this industry of healthcare in the first place. And they feel that they have an opportunity to really transform this system in a monumental way that people have been fighting for years, and do it without regulation, without government intervention, but doing it because of the goodness of American business. And that was a very, very encouraging thing to me. And I'm very grateful to President Trump for the leadership that has inspired people to take these kind of steps with faith in our country and faith in our future. Thank you all very much.
Good job.
All right, and now we'll end this one. God bless you all. Remember, Jesus Christ loves you, and so do I. Until next time.